Well, welcome and thank you for listening to the Next50 Forward podcast. Today we're going to introduce you to a nonprofit named Next50 and its CEO, Peter Kaldes, and some of its grant recipient partners in segment 2. Hello and welcome, Peter. Thanks for joining.
Hi there.
Yeah. Well, first, tell us a little about yourself and how you came to value aging and dedicating yourself to encouraging the world to do the same.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it really comes down to the personal and practical reasons. So practically, we had moved to South Florida from Washington, D.C., where I started life as a lawyer, and was really looking for a new career, and landed running a nonprofit organization, a community-based organization that was working with older adults, helping them find jobs, volunteer in the community, learn technology. And I thought, wow, this is an unusual nonprofit. I hadn't come across such nonprofits before, and it's really the wild, wild west when it comes to opportunity. And so that was the sort of practical first step into aging. Personally, though, I entered it, I think, as I look back on it as I get older, because of my grandmother and the influence my grandparents had on me as they aged, seeing how society treated them. Really was eye-opening. So I'm inspired by the personal and the practical.
Sure. So that inspiration turned into Next50. Tell us a little bit about Next50, what its mission is, and what excites you most about what you're doing to fulfill that mission.
So if you think about it, it's really expensive to get old in this country. And so that's what Next50, a private national foundation, is trying to change. And we do that through grant making as well as through social investment, so impact investing. And for us, it really comes down to three things. Can we help people age in place or age in the community that they want to live in? Can we help them learn technology skills? And finally, can we just end ageism because it impacts everything we do?
And we're in the midst of a monumental shift in the age demographics overall of the U.S. The older people becoming 65 and older. I think the stat is something like it's going to rapidly increase over the next 2 to 5 years specifically. Can you tell us what you're seeing in terms of promising direction with those three goals, where you're headed within that aging population?
No, you're right. So first of all, in just 5 years from now, we're going to have more people over 65 than under 18. And in Colorado, the state is the second fastest aging state in the nation, just after Alaska. So we have a lot of opportunity because I look at things positively, and there's a lot of need. And so for us, we're seeing some real successes in our community-based organizations, primarily helping to serve people with pandemic-related needs. So during the global pandemic, we were offering general grants to organizations to just feed people, house people, get them the help they needed. But also, we were one of the first to invest in a new technology training center for older adults called Senior Planet, which is here in Lowry. And that has been really successful in making people just feel more comfortable using technology, probably the way you and I use technology, which is every day, and it's a basic need. And then finally, I'm really proud of our work around ending ageism, because we funded a special campaign called Changing the Narrative that really started going from group to group, just demonstrating how ageist we are, from the jokes that we tell ourselves to the fact that we think we can't teach an old dog new tricks, because actually you can. Science has shown you can. And just really changing some really ingrained ageist behaviors. So I'm really proud of all those three areas.
Well, and it's one thing just to talk about these things. I hear a lot of talk about these things. It's another thing to act on them. Can you tell us a little about how you're acting through your grant programs and what types of things you're funding?
No, really good question. So right now we're in the middle of reviewing some grants around helping nonprofits just do a better job at their job. So in other words, they want to merge, they want to do some strategic planning, they want to help more people. We have funding streams for that, and we're really proud of the projects there. Also, we have a number of organizations that are looking at housing and making them more affordable, or co-living opportunities. And so we've done grant making there with organizations that are making it less expensive to have a home. Finally, I think one of the interesting things that we're seeing more and more of is this need for policymakers to be more involved in the aging space. So we are increasingly funding advocates and policy work to really help drive change at the state, but also at the local level.
What final thoughts would you like to leave listeners before we move to some of Next50's grant recipients in our second segment?
Well, I would just welcome folks to think about the aging experience personally, because I think society isn't going to value us as we age until we value ourselves individually. So just sort of, check. Are you buying those ridiculous birthday cards that make fun of the fact that you're getting older as opposed to celebrating the fact that you're living longer? Are you, maybe volunteering in your local nonprofit that's working with older adults and try and do a better job of building those multi-generational relationships? And then if you're on social media, follow some older content creators. There's some really great content out there being put out by folks who are over 65.
Fantastic. It's great work, and we're excited to hear more from the grant recipients here in our second segment.
Thanks again for listening to Next50 Forward. I'm Peter Kaldes, President and CEO of Next50, and I'm excited to welcome several of our grant recipient partners into the conversation. Let's go around the room and have each of you introduce yourselves and share the mission of your organization.
Thank you, Peter. My name is Candace Borges White, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Second Chance Center. And we support justice-involved individuals transition to lives of success and fulfillment.
Thank you for having us, Peter. My name is Vivian Reyes. I am a program manager at CLLARO. CLLARO's mission is to empower Latinos through leadership development, advocacy, and research.
And I'm Barbara Freeman, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm CEO and founder of the Savings Collaborative. And our mission is to build financial resilience and wealth across generations. We focus primarily on historically excluded communities of color. We call groups that are left out of mainstream banking. So all of our clients are low income.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Barbara, Vivian, and Candace for joining us today. Let's learn a little bit about what attracted you to the work you're currently doing. Why don't I start with you, Candace?
I had a situation in my personal life that led me to do this work. In 2015, I was indicted and served time in federal prison. And when I was released back to our community, I arrived at a halfway house, a community corrections facility, and the first thing that I was told when I arrived home is that the system was set up for me to go back, and that no one would hire me and no one would rent to me. And at that point in time, I made a commitment that if I could be part of changing that narrative for so many individuals that are coming home, that I wanted to do so.
Thank you for sharing that, Candace. Vivian, what about you?
For me, I think I was at the right time and I was at the right place in the right time with the organization CLLARO. We had just gotten also funding from Next50, and I started as an intern actually, and I had so many great ideas, and I made those ideas reality to what are now programs at CLLARO. But honestly, I am now committed more than ever to furthering my work with older Latinos specifically, because this feeling stemmed from residing in Los Angeles, California, where I saw a lot of older Latinos struggle to make ends meet. And so now that I've practiced and got to learn more, I'm committing to furthering my work with this community.
Well, I'm glad you are. Thank you. Barbara, tell us about your reasons.
Well, for me, this is a culmination of everything that I've done through my life, both lived experience, academically, and work experience. In particular, really, with respect to the Savings Collaborative, we had initially noticed that a large percentage of our population were 50 plus. And 50 plus who had no savings at any given moment in their life, really starting to build emergency savings at this point in their life, right? No savings for retirement, for medical. And many of these people are working in, physically demanding jobs as housekeepers, caregivers, and construction workers, right? That's heartbreaking, right? And I am from 50 plus, so I fit into that demographic. So, thinking of a future right there is harsh and scary. And so we dug into a little bit more, and we learned about people not just worried always worried. Everyone cares about their legacy and their future and their families, but a lot of people worried about leaving their families in debt, leaving their families with funeral costs.
Yeah, no, it can be really scary for folks. And I think for some also, some of the statistics can be a little scary, but I mean, I have to tell you, I'm going to share some data. I don't think it's scary. I actually think these are opportunities, but the US Census is predicting that by 2029, the number of people over 65 is going to exceed the number of people under 18. And again, that might be scary for some folks, but I see it as an opportunity. Let me hear a little bit about how your organizations are thinking about this huge demographic shift. Vivian, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that actually, because ever since I started, when I would do some digging, that's all I would see. And actually, I did bring one just for a fact that according to the CLLARO Health Institute, in 2040, Latinos age 65 and older will make up nearly 17% of Coloradans' older adult population. And so ever since I started, I feel like we're at the midst of those predictions already. It's already happening. And that's why I think CLLARO has done an amazing job at always incorporating older Latinos in a lot of the work that they are doing. And I think if anything, we're ready to take it on a macro level. We did a little bit of everything. We've done the research, we did the programming, and now we're putting together a lot of what we have accumulated and learned and start advocating more on a macro level. And I think right now we're doing that also through the Research Institute. So back when we were known as La Raza, we were known for that research. And so we're wanting to bringing that back, and we're wanting to now make that public and shareable and more accessible to the community.
Yeah, it's so important to share data so people understand how every population is impacted by aging or the lack of services or what they need. Yeah. And speaking of specialized populations, Candace, let's talk a little bit about the population you serve and what you're seeing in terms of the demographic shift.
Absolutely. Approximately 2 years ago, it was brought to our attention by the Colorado Department of Corrections that at any one time there were between 150 and 200 individuals over the age of 55 that were eligible for release that remained incarcerated because they had no community to come back to, no family, no housing plan. And so with the generous funding of Next50, we were able to build out a program that we refer to as our advanced age program. And we're bringing these men and women home. And more importantly, we're bringing them home to a community. And so we offer not just housing support, behavioral health, and healthcare support. We are helping individuals to build a community by hosting pro-social activities. And because of the immediate outcomes that we were experiencing, we're now partnering with Department of Housing, City and County of Denver's HOST program to actually align permanent supportive housing vouchers and other housing alternatives for these individuals so that they can come home.
That's remarkable, and thank you for doing that work. Barbara, you talked a little bit about the data before, but I'm curious, can we dig a little deeper and give me a sense of how your programs are maybe more personalized or targeting the kinds of marginalized populations that you refer to?
There are two parts actually, and in relationship to your question itself. One is working with populations that are 50 plus, right? And again, with the support of Next50, which has really transformed our abilities here, we've been able to get financial coaches and ambassadors from the communities that we serve. That means a few things, right? It means age. It means, in our case, more than 90% of our population are Latino immigrants. But we're expanding into other communities as well. So it means people whose first language is Spanish, right? People that have experienced many of the issues before, right? As ambassadors, as an ability to build trust and build relationships with people, a really important layer. It's also enabled us to hire professional financial coaches and to train professional financial coaches that can get personalized, that can really dig in on issues, whether they're housing and keeping a roof over your head, Social Security, access, scams, all sorts of issues like that. So that's a really important layer for us. The second part also, though, is you have the generation that is 50 plus. Often we've got issues of multi-generational. So families are living together. Families are taking care of each other. The 50 plus are taking care of the younger kids, and back and forth, right? These are really important. So also, how do you prepare the families? Because the families, that demographic number you're talking about, the families are going to age into that as well. So, how can you help them prepare? How can you help them reach their goals, whatever they may be?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. You're really tackling difficult financial issues that some people didn't have the luxury of and the privilege of having financial advisors or access to that information. They didn't know that they could. So I love that you're really focusing on those who have been historically marginalized to build financial resilience. Yeah. Bibian, is something that Barbara said struck me as well, that I think anecdotally we know that in the Latino and Hispanic culture, multi-generational households are kind of a norm. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about CLLARO's programs and specifically how you're reaching lower income communities?
Yeah, of course. So we had a resource navigation program. The resource navigation program was basically a resource line. It was outreach, assistance, and referral. And what that really looked like is it was tailored to older Latinos, but it was anybody needed resources. But the content and everything was tailored to this population, 50 plus. And so through there, we learned a lot about the needs, the counties, where they are coming from, what are they seeking. And our navigators were able to help them navigate and obtain the resources that they were looking for. And so what really the key here is that we utilized and shifted away from email. We asked them, what was your preferred method of communication? So we would meet them where they were at instead of them having them meet us where we were at. And so that really changed the game. So we started utilizing Facebook. They use Facebook. Utilizing WhatsApp. They prefer WhatsApp over an email. And so we kind of played around with even the materials that we utilized. And I like to say we were the bridge, the medium between the client and the resource. And so some resources we were able to call directly and schedule an appointment for them. I mean, like, okay, we texted them, we send them a screenshot, like, you have an appointment here. This is where, versus other, it was more restricting, right? Where it's like legal services that then we would guide them through that legal services for them to obtain that. The resource navigation program was my baby, where I learned so much from this population. And then the CARE program, the Community Access Research and Engagement Program, was the program in which we engaged directly with older Latinos and their families and their caretakers. So we would meet twice a month, and activities varied. We were dancing Zumba, we were playing loteria, we were doing some yoga. So that program was pretty much participant-led. Whatever they wanted, we would bring it to them. And so that was our way to engage with them and more of a one-to-one interaction.
Speaking of engagement, I want to ask all of you about partnerships and really get a sense about how you collaborate with other organizations, whether they're other nonprofits or maybe it's banks or other institutions. Why don't you share with us, Candace, a little bit about your collaborations?
Absolutely. The collaborations and the partnerships that we have developed have been essential in establishing and growing our advanced age program. I mentioned to you that we were originally told 150 to 200 individuals at any one given time were eligible for release and remained incarcerated. That number is growing every month. And what many didn't realize is that these individuals will reach a mandatory release date, and they will be released whether they have a housing plan or support. And so we started first working with Colorado Department of Corrections so that we could identify individuals and connect with them well in advance to begin to put together a plan. We actually visit them while they're incarcerated, and then we're there to welcome them home. We work very closely with the parole division, so if somebody is not connected with us in advance, we connect with them once we get home. One of the barriers that we identified, Peter, very early on was that of housing. And what I didn't know at the time is that many of the individuals that we support are not eligible for assisted living or nursing care facilities because they have a felony. And so we immediately connected with the mayor and the governor to make sure that they understood that these individuals would be released unhoused. And we then built a relationship with Department of Housing, where we are now administering scattered site housing vouchers. And I'm really excited to say that now we have secured funding for the next 3 years through the Department of Housing to provide emergency, transitional, and stable housing support for older adults that are coming home. And we are breaking ground in just a couple of weeks on our first permanent supportive housing and affordable workforce housing development in Denver. And so the partnerships have been critical in helping us do more than just bring people home, to make sure that we can keep them housed and keep them healthy and happy in community.
Well, congratulations on that. As we all know, the aging field does not have a lot of funding tied to it. So the fact that you were able to leverage those partnerships to create those new investments is remarkable. So congratulations on that. Barbara, why don't we get a sense from you about the kinds of partnerships and collaborations you work on?
Sure. Well, same. I mean, the partnership is central to what we do, and it's central to our model. We work with different organizations that serve a similar population and who we can complement and add something. So often the issue is housing, right? Or I'll give some other examples, but where there's a central issue, right? But the financial coaching and counseling can help budget or plan, or there's a piece of that fits in. So we work with many different organizations like that. We work very closely actually with the Denver Office of Financial Empowerment and Protection. And that's a great organization in the sense that they're able to cover Denver County and Denver Metro. We're able to cover the rest of the state. So there are a few other offices that provide financial coaching and counseling throughout the state. But whenever they have someone who geographically, and they often do, they go to Denver first, they'll pass them to us, and then we can help. But we also have a product, right? We make it easy to save. So we have a multilingual app. We have emergency loans, and we've helped them refinance predatory loans. So a whole bunch of issues there. One other example would be, for example, we work with a guaranteed income program. And this guaranteed income program is particularly for child caregivers, right? Many of whom are 50 plus. And so suddenly a caregiver will get $500 more, for example. And so what we try to work with that group is, well, maybe we can help you save a little piece of that, or help you make a plan with that.
Bibian, you mentioned connecting your clients with resources. I imagine that requires a lot of good partnerships as well, right?
It does. A lot of our successes have come from the more informal partnerships. What I've learned is that we all have bits and pieces, and we have to find each other, especially because within funding for aging projects, it's Next50, you're unique, very unique. And hands-on, like a lot of what we have been able to accomplish is because of Next50, honestly. Because then we run into that issue of like, okay, certain funders don't fund aging projects, and having to educate them on like why you should and why it also is related to the work and the things you do fund. So ours is more, I think, there is that opportunity, and with the 3 years I've dedicated to just finding the services, the existing programs, the needs, I think there is an opportunity still there. There's that huge gap of like, we're there, but we don't know about each other. And I confirmed that on the On Aging conference. And it's like, where have you all been? You know, we're all in Colorado, but we don't know about each other. So I think there's still that opportunity to continue to see what's out there and work together, because through the resource line, I saw a lot of like, there was a lot of translation barriers where like they had the service, but they didn't have the staff. So that's the bridge, CLLARO coming in is like, okay, well, we can help you that. So we were able to get a lot of our clients like financial assistance, and financial assistance was a huge request. And so funds were out there, but there was that language barrier. And so even as simple as that, so it's like, it sounds simple, but it's really not, because we were able to serve a lot of individuals through those informal partnerships. And so even though the more formal partnerships are harder to obtain, through navigators, and a lot of us would come together to kind of like put in the pieces that we're missing in order to support our mutual clients.
Vivian, you said something that leads me to my final question for all of you, which is, you mentioned you attended the American Society on Aging conference, and all three of you actually attended, which we were delighted to help you get to. Many of you came back really excited at this opportunity of meeting other nonprofits in your space. I'm wondering, what advice would you give to other nonprofits who are facing these, demographic shifts that we started talking about? How should they go about their work? I'll start with you, Candace.
The first thing that comes to mind for me, and I think each of you have already touched on this, is a one-size-fits-all approach does not work. And I think what we've demonstrated here is understanding the specific needs of the demographic that we serve, and then building an ecosystem and being able to reach out to other community-based organizations. Let's write grants together. Let's share resources. That's one thing I think that we all walked away from the opportunity on aging with a deep understanding of how important that is. I was just speaking to Barbara. We have a group of reentry organizations that's now 22 strong across the state. And we are in the midst of looking at what is working and where there are opportunities for us to better support returning citizens. And one of the key areas of focus after hearing from our participants across the state is the need for financial literacy and ongoing support. And so immediately that opportunity allowed me to connect in with Barbara and start thinking about how we can work together to serve individuals across the state. And that's just one example.
That's a great example. Bibian, what about you? What other tips would you give nonprofits facing this seismic shift?
We need to come together, because even we can't do it all, and we can't do it alone. And so you offer one thing, you offer another, and I offer another, and like we can come together. I think that is more than anything, and actually taking the time to ask the individuals you are trying to serve what they need.
Barbara, you can appreciate the numbers. You're in a numbers business, so to speak. How have the demographic shifts impacted? What advice would you give to organizations who are impacted by the demographic shift?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I agree. Networking, human-centered, people-centered approach, and listen and be responsive. I mean, I also feel with the less of a numbers answer to your question, really. I mean, I think that also people start to disappear after 50 from the recognition, and that can't happen, right? and I think that's a sort of a sadness in all of it, right? Just when there's growing wisdom, and even if you may need support, so we just don't want the 50 plus population to disappear.
We agree, Barbara. We wholeheartedly agree. Just one quick round robin. If people want to find out more about your organizations, where can they go, Barbara?
Our website, savingscollaborative.org.
Excellent. And Bibian?
The same, CLLARO.org.
SecondChanceCenter.org.
Excellent. Well, thank you to Candace, Bibian, and Barbara for such a rich conversation. And I thank you to all of you out there for listening to us today. I'm Peter Kaldes, President and CEO of Next50. And together with these amazing grant partners, we're working to create a world that values aging. Our next grant cycle is opening soon on July 1st. So to find out more about our grant opportunities and to apply, visit our website at next50foundation.org. That's next50foundation.org, or find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.